Good morning and welcome to the January 28th meeting of the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, as has been our practice in previous meetings, we go to our co-executive directors for an update. Doug, if you could take it away, please.
Sure. Yesterday we heard from Department of State and Sunni Research Foundation. They are trying to complete the contract to be sent over to the Attorney General and the Comptroller's Office for approval. We asked to see a draft of the contract and they did not provide that to us. And that's kind of where we stand. Karen and I both asked that we see the contract and they just said we're not a party to the contract. So they're going to, it's between the Department of State and the Sunni Research Foundation. That Karen and I both asked repeatedly and they said they would get back to us in regards to seeing that contract. We had not heard back yet. That's where we stand on the budget. As far as Census has provided us with some updates, last week we received an email from the Census in regards to Tiger data for New York. We had to inform them that we could not receive it because we don't have our funding or infrastructure to receive that. And then they also updated yesterday that the apportionment numbers will not be coming out until April 30th, and the PL data will not be released before July 30th. Some of that's due to the delays of COVID, and it's going to be a little bit of a different year because of COVID. So they did inform us of that yesterday.
Thank you, Doug.
What's the April data that's coming out?
That's the apportionment, which would be the.
Oh, okay.
We'll find out about the congressional districts at that time, whether it's 1, 2, if we're losing any, or it does seem like we are going to lose at least 1, and it could be 2 congressional districts in New York.
Commissioner Wofford?
Yeah, Doug, just a couple of questions about the contract discussion. First of all, you said that they were not going to allow you to see it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was there any indication of who decided that?
No, we did ask, who decided that, and they did not tell us. They just said that we're not a party to the contract.
Yes, but even though they've proposed that the commission not be a party, it's a contract governing the budget and affecting the operations of this independent commission. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So let me ask you this. Was there any indication given by the representatives as to certain items that affect the commission? So for example, under their contract that they haven't let you see, is the full $1 million actually being appropriated to the commission or some other number?
There's an administrative fee that goes to the Sunni Research Foundation. That's 10% of the $1 million appropriation. And they have, in the contract, negotiated that $250,000 be set aside for legal services. So $350,000 had been already budgeted before Karen and I could fill in the rest.
On this $250,000, which is a quarter of the appropriation, is that $250,000 under the control of the commission?
That wasn't clear. There is a process of hiring in the state of New York. So it's not like the commission would be able to choose who the attorney is. There would be a process, but without seeing the contract, I don't know what that process is.
Right, but if we're not a party, they indicated that we'd be able to direct the access of that money for legal services at all, or is it effectively just disappeared?
That's not clear. It would seem that Sunni Research Foundation would have to. They will be involved in the hiring of any employees or contracts that we were to enter into, whether it be contractors, hiring. Any purchases that we make, they would be involved in all of that.
Were there any protections mentioned for our potential employees in terms of them being state employees or entitled to state benefits? Or did they give you any indication? If so, what was the indication?
Everyone would be a Sunni Research Foundation employee, so they are not state employees. And there's a fringe benefit attached to that. So if you were a state employee, it would be 50, I believe 57%. Under Sunni RF, the fringe benefits were 41%.
Again, that element of employees, what the benefit percentages are, who's employing them, that was decided. Did they say who had decided that?
No.
Did the Department of State decide that? Did Sunni decide? Who decided that?
I don't know who decided that. That this is a contract between Department of State and Sunni RF. So, you know, it would be an assumption that they did not tell us who decided that.
Did you have the opportunity to go to the Sunni RF website? I believe they have a lot of rules and guidelines there, contracting, etc. Have you or Karen had the opportunity to look at that info?
No, but they did say that it would be similar to the state process. So no, Karen and I have not. Frankly, Commissioner, we got thrown onto a call late yesterday afternoon and told that this is what's happening. So you know, we were really trying to get back to you guys and ladies to make sure that you understood that we were not going to be reviewing the contract prior. We did not give them additional information to complete the contract because they were not sharing it with us.
Because you're not reviewing it because they won't allow you to, not because we did not to.
That's correct. They needed information from both Karen and I, and we would not provide it because they would not allow us to review the contract at that time.
Commissioner Martins, yeah.
Yeah, who governs the Sunni Research Foundation? Is there a board that's appointed by, I'm assuming, the governor or legislative leaders? Because ultimately, if we have that kind of interference in our activities such that, you know, the governor or the legislative leaders are indirectly going to affect our hiring, the use of our budget, access to funds, they're circumventing the whole purpose of having an independent commission. And frankly, we need to call it what it is. You know, this is not an independent group. They are obviously appointees that are, you know, effectively taking at this point we're trying to take a third of our allocated funds that we need now to start this process. And I think we need to look at it that way. Who's making those decisions? The Sunni Research Foundation obviously is taking direction from somebody. And yet, Doug, can you have any sense? Have they indicated who's told them that they have to have a contract that we can't see? Who's told them that effectively they will have control over our hiring practices, or that they should set aside $250,000 for their purposes before we even get our first dollar? Have you gotten any indication from them at all?
No, I don't know who is instructing them as to, you know, what we can and cannot do. To answer your question, it is a board. I don't think I've gone into, I have not dug into how they're appointed. So, but they did say any budget that we put forward can be amended as we go through our process, but they did want to set aside that $250,000 for legal services for future, you know, potential litigation down the line. That's all they told us.
The 250 is not for the commission's potential need for legal counsel.
We don't. It does not seem that way.
This is a serious issue. Look, the legislature and the governor put this appropriation in the Department of State. The Department of State, you know, and working, I think, with the Division of Budget, decided that they would find a fix with regard to this appropriation by funneling it through the Research Foundation, and here we are. Well, it's not a fix. A fix that takes away our resources and removes the ability of this commission to actually make decisions for itself is not a fix. So I think we need to press forward.
Well, all these actions up to date would appear to be completely unconstitutional on the part of all the other players. This is supposed to be an independent redistricting commission that was established by the Constitution. There are provisions to fund it. There are provisions to operate it. And we're being thwarted by the executive and the legislative branches with regard to doing our job. So I don't know where we go from here. Maybe litigation is the only way we can resolve this, but these bodies are, in my judgment, acting in a complete unconstitutional basis.
I mean, if I might ask a question, Doug, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not a lawyer, so I can have an if in that.
That's a good thing, Charlie. That's a good thing.
We additionally will be subject to an agreement or an operating contract or whatever with Sunni Research. Is that not true? So there will be an agreement between us with some kind of an operating agreement or a contract that will have additional stipulations between us and research. Is that not so?
Commissioner, are you referring to you as individuals, with regard to compensation and employment?
No, we the commission. So
I don't know the answer to that. It's possible. There are rules that we have to follow and operate under, but it would be under Sunni Research's rules. But I don't know if we would be under contract. I don't know the answer to that. They did let us know that employment would be under Sunni Research, and I believe the commissioners would fall under that. I then asked them the very question, because all commissioners are not going to be state employees, nor will the employees. You all filed a public oath of office, and you are public officers, and they were going to look into that. You're public officers for the state of New York.
I'm sorry, look into what aspect?
Well, whether or not there are protections by the state for you as public officers. It does not seem that they had said that that you're not, and that you're going to fall under Sunni Research, which does not put you in a state employment. But you are all public officers because you all filed an oath of office with the Department of State, who was on the call that we were on, along with the legislature you guys had filed your oaths of office with. So that makes you a public officer for the state of New York.
Doug, today is January 28th.
Mm-hmm.
There are 50 redistricting efforts taking place in this country right now. Every state has one. My understanding is there are about 15 independent redistricting commissions among those 50. And it is also my understanding that of all 50, including the 15 independent redistricting commissions in this country, the only one in the entire country that has yet to be funded is New York. And I think the commission needs to take that and let that sink in. And anyone actually who's listening and following this process needs to let that sink in. We're not doing this in a vacuum. This isn't something novel. It's done every 10 years. Every state in the country is going through a redistricting process right now and has a responsibility to do so for congressional lines as well as all the state legislative lines. The only one that hasn't done it is New York. And we have to look to our leadership here in New York, frankly, to ask the question why. I think the country needs to look to New York and ask the question why. How do we put these lines together? How do we put maps together? How do we put a product out akin to what's happening everywhere else in the country if we don't have the resources to do it? And I don't think this is an accident. I don't happen to think that this is something that's being done unintentionally. I think it's, quite frankly, it is very intentional, and we wouldn't be here otherwise. So, guys, I'm concerned. It is the end of January. We've said this since September, November, December. We've sent letters. I'm questioning what our next steps need to be. George, to your point earlier, where do we go from here? Who do we reach out to? We've reached out to the legislative leaders. We've reached out to the Office of Division of Budget. We've reached out to the governor. Who else do we have to reach out to? And are we reaching a point where, where we're actually putting ourselves in a position where we can't do our job any further?
I mean, I think Commissioner Martins, but for the generosity of our putative co-executive directors, we're already in a position where we can't properly do our jobs. I think it's fair to say. There seems to be no, this funding would actually emerge. Sorry, there seems to be no contemplation when this funding would actually emerge at this point. There are unresolved questions as to what is the duration of the review by the Attorney General and the Office of the State Controller, if in fact that review is. Further to that, there are questions that were raised by Commissioner Nesbitt as to whether the state, by doing this in this format, has even acknowledged the Further, there is a question of once that existence is acknowledged, whether in fact there will be yet another agreement thrown at us like a barrel in the video game Donkey Kong to delay us another set of months. So you're right, we do have a set of problems, and also unanswered here, frankly, is whether this format, as Commissioner Winter described, is even legal. Because the way I look at it, not from a legal but from a practical perspective, is we were all appointed as commissioners. And if the Constitution intended that you would replace us with the commissioners of Sunni Research or the directors of Sunni Research Foundation, it would have said as much. But that is effectively what it sounds like is being teed up through this contract that we haven't been allowed to see. So even if the so-called fix, which isn't a fix, is affected, if it's affected timely at all, it itself may be legally infirm. So I don't know where we go from here.
One thing we didn't discuss since the beginning of this meeting was the status of the budget itself. The Constitution specifically requires the budget to provide for the funding. The governor did not provide for any funding in his executive budget for us. He reappropriated the $1 million and then has not made it available to us by virtue of his not fixing where the money was to be directed, and allowed this continued shoving of the money over the Sunni Research Foundation, which, as other commissioners have pointed out, is going nowhere as of now. The original appropriation into the Department of State's local assistance budget certainly created they said that wasn't done improperly as well. So, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to be cynical, but it appears that this is being deliberate to keep us from doing our job, and is clearly an unconstitutional action by the executive and the legislature to thwart the will of the voters. So our next budgetary opportunity is, of course, the 30-day amendment from the governor. And in the absence of 30-day amendments appropriating money and hopefully potentially fixing this so that we're not having to deal with the Sunni Research Foundation and what appears to be, I mean, this is an outrageous taking a third of our funds before we've gotten a dollar is, in my judgment, outrageous. And as such, this could be clearly fixed by the legislature and the governor within the budget framework, but they choose not to do so. So our next date of drop dead date with regard to the the official process is the 30-day amendments of the governor. I don't know what's going to happen there. If it isn't, if the money and the fix isn't in that 30-day amendment, we're then subject to the whim of the legislature for their April 1 deadline. And given that what has happened so far with regard to the legislature's uninterestedness in this process, I think that our activities are significantly in peril.
Commissioner Winter, both Karen and I did talk about that, both the 30-day amendments, but the other step would be the one house budgets of the legislative houses and making a request to both the Senate and the Assembly to include us in the one house, in their one house budgets for the negotiation to go forward to April 1st. So that's something that the commission can consider. Karen and I could do the letter, or if all the commissioners want to do that to the legislative leaders, they can certainly do it.
George, you're on mute. You're on mute, George.
Absence of begging, I don't know what we've done everything. We've asked them politely. We've asked them in September. We asked them in October. We've asked them in November, and December, and January, and we got nothing. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe we can get somebody out there in the world that's interested in to sue everybody here. That seems to be the way they open up the restaurants in New York State. So maybe they open up the funding for us by going to court. But otherwise, I mean, we might as well just go home and fold this thing up because we're being thwarted deliberately by the powers that be and set this up as a big Potemkin village so that they can do their own plans and through LAT4, and it's becoming as clear as the nose of my face that that's what's happening here.
The letter that we already did a letter regarding the 30-day amendment, right? That was directed to, I believe, the budget director, though, and we copied the governor and legislative leaders. What I thought I just heard you say, Doug, or perhaps this is a recommendation, we communicate that letter directly to the legislative leaders in both houses now, so that they're on notice that we're asking to be included in the 30-day budget amendments coming in from each of their one house bills.
Yeah, Commissioner, we actually sent a letter to the budget director for the budget proposal that was already released by the executive. It didn't address the 30-day amendments in that, but we can certainly write another letter for the 30-day amendments. But when the legislature puts together their one house, that's the negotiation with the governor. So if we're not included in the legislative one house, we're in a pretty bad shape if the governor doesn't put in his 30-day amendments. So I'm
suggesting that we do go on the record, handle that piece administratively. And another thought occurs to me, how about seeking an opinion from the state attorney general as to the legislative and executive branch's obligation to provide the funding and resources to the IRC so that we can do our work. That's short of a lawsuit. We don't have the resources to initiate a lawsuit, but the chief legal officer of the state, it might be helpful to have that person on that entity, that officer on the record, statewide officer, chief legal officer, backing up what this IRC's position is and request. That's food for thought, Kyle.
And and to add on to that, as we proceed with the budgetary process, as I recall, the state constitution requires us to present a formal budget to the state legislature. So we have a very good draft ready, that we've been putting together. So we need to finalize that shortly. So Doug, if you could work with Karen.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Is that not correct? Yeah.
I don't know that we have to, as a body, create a budget and a staffing plan.
Right.
I don't know that we have to give that to the legislature, but we could certainly go back and read the amendment. But we do have a number, and we have put together that budget.
Yes.
Staffing plan.
Right. Yes. And but I think we need to, as a group, decide on that as well.
Yeah.
David, we circulated, everyone, we circulated a letter or draft letter for everyone's consideration with regard to the $1 million and releasing the $1 million. We wanted to send a letter to the governor calling on him to step in to actually make order out of the chaos that currently exists around this process. We'd like to send that letter. I think it's important that we send that letter. To Commissioner Flateau's point, I do think it makes sense for us to also simultaneously reach out to the state attorney general. I think we should also appeal to the U.S. attorney general because, as I said earlier, we have a responsibility to put these lines together and these maps together, and it will affect our ability to put these congressional lines together for New York State. And there is, and we need to consider there is a federal issue here, as much as there is a state issue with regard to our own legislative lines. If we're not prepared to advance lines, and New York is the only one that's not, perhaps we need to have the federal government intervene on behalf of the people of New York, the governor. So just some thought there because we to move more aggressively. The idea that we're going to go forward now, we've asked the governor for funding, we've asked the legislative leaders for funding, we've asked the Office of Division of Budget for funding, we've asked everybody to intervene, we asked them to include us in their budget. Now we're going to ask the legislative leaders to include us in their budget or the governor to include them. Look, everybody knows where we are. Everyone's received their letters. Nothing we're talking about now is a surprise. So yes, let's paper this. Let's send out these requests. Let's see if we can shame them into doing what they should have been doing all along. But I do want some consensus from the commission on sending that proposed letter to the governor with regard to the $1 million. Does anyone have any?
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
Commissioner
agree.
Martins. So we looked at the draft of the letter, and I think we agree on the substance of what we've been discussing here. I think that since Doug and Karen just recently talked to Sunni RF yesterday, I think it makes sense to hold off on sending a letter until we get more clarity on what exactly is on the table from Sunni RF. I agree that if this does not work out, we should continue our letter writing campaign, as it were. But I think in the apps, I don't think it makes sense to necessarily go forward with sending yet another letter until we know exactly what happens. It's very possible that Sunni RF will work out, and it's we still don't know the exact timeline. So I would say, personally, I would like to hold off, and there are revisions to the letter that I would want to make if we were to send it.
Yeah, Commissioner Imara, I strongly but respectfully disagree. The letter merely recounts the litany of frankly regrettable actions by the various state actors, as well as the multiple good government groups and other interested groups who thoroughly disagree with how this process is being conducted. None of the substance of the letter is even remotely controversial in terms of it being true or false. Further delay, frankly, in this instance, I believe is prejudicial. With respect to the Research Foundation, to the extent that is quote unquote just another letter, it is not in any way disruptive of the Research Foundation process, to the extent that that's a process at all. And frankly, given the degree of questions which they've either refused to answer or been directed not to answer by their superiors or can't answer because they don't know the answer, it is completely unacceptable for this commission to delay further. I move right now, as a member of this commission, that we send that letter out forthrightly. Do we have a second?
Second.
Well, we still need to debate this right before we go to a vote. Do any other commissioners want to discuss this?
Yeah, well, I would just concur that this is the letter is a declaration. It's a declaration of the Independent Redistricting Commission, a list of grievances, as it were, that have been said before. Holding back and sending letter after letter is just kind of falling into line with what seems to be a grievous plan against the purpose of this commission, without insinuating too much, but insinuating everything. There's too many impediments put in the way of the commission, too many impediments put in the way of people who want to contribute and getting this job done for whatever the purposes are, by whoever the players are, in whichever chamber they're in. So I think it's time to move forward to get the news out there. And if anybody wants to join to push this forward to the Attorney General or to the federal court, they should do that too. That's about as strong as I can say it.
I just had the opportunity to read the letter this morning. I think it was sent yesterday evening. It's a 4-page letter. I agree with the substance and the content, but I think we do need some editing of that letter. And it's addressed only to the governor. It should be addressed to the governor, the legislative leaders. I would now add the state attorney general. It should be directly addressed to them, not copying, you know, certain other parties. There are 2 independent branches of government here that manage the budget of the state of New York, legislative and executive branch. So I think we need a little more time to edit that letter. And then I would be in favor of moving forward.
I agree. I have to express my dismay and frustration with this whole process, right? We've been waiting and waiting to have a response from the executive and legislative branch, to no avail. We get half answers, or, you know, just more, you know, convoluted processes that are going on basically without our full knowledge. And I agree with the substance of the letter. I agree with Commissioner Flateau that I would sign on if we are allowed to do some edits so that the letter comes from us all, right? Since it was sent as a draft from some of the commissioners, I think that we should all have a hand in drafting the letter. And I agree with directing the letter not only to the governor, but to the other parties that might have power to help us out here.
I respectfully disagree, Commissioner. I think that the letter is appropriately addressed to the governor. This is the governor's fault right now. The governor has failed to appropriate the funds to this commission in his executive budget, as the Constitution requires. And until the legislature is in action on its April 1 budget, the legislature is not responsible for what the governor has failed to submit. And the governor has failed to submit an appropriation to the legislature to fund this commission in his executive budget. And as such, it is totally and completely on him right now to fund this commission.
So allow me to try to assuage some of the concerns of Commissioner Cuevas-Molina and Commissioner Flateau. First of all, the draft of the letter, as you may recall, actually copies the leadership of the legislature. So in terms of them being on notice, as if they aren't already, that they can act proactively to resolve the situation. The failure to have them as a direct addressee as currently drafted, I don't think is fatal or even problematic. So that's not a reason to delay. As far as just the record, Co-Executive Director Brickell, when was the draft circulated yesterday? I just want to make sure that's correct.
Yesterday morning.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. And I guess, Professor Flateau, Commissioner Flateau, we need to get something out and not delay to another meeting. If the commissioners are willing to vote in favor of this letter, I guess I'd rather resolve what minor changes there are now rather than having this wait for 2 weeks or a month, particularly because we have a 30-day clock going on the executive budget revisions and everything else, frankly.
No, I mean, Commissioner, I appreciate the thought, and I think we agree largely on the substance. But I think that there are, at least in reviewing it, there are certainly more edits than I think could be resolved on this call. I think it would be preferable on our end if we, if we would proceed to put up a markup and send it back to you. so
Well,
we could resolve the letter together.
I guess, again, I respectfully disagree with that process, particularly given the expressed protestations or pardon me, professions of agreement with the substance. For purposes of the record, notwithstanding that we may or may not agree today, I still think for having this letter part of the record, we need to bring this to a vote. And if it turns out, as it turns out. I just don't think we can wait any longer.
Well, we have a motion and a second.
Yes,
Half
we
of
have
the
a motion.
commissioners drafted this letter and the other half of us are reviewing it. I think this is a little hasty. Let the other half of the commission review it and have some input here. That's what all I'm suggesting.
Right, and I think Commissioner Wofford, it's certainly in the interest of the commission for us to work together on this. I think we all agree that we need to get funding. I think there's no question of that. I think that all of the commissioners have actively pushed for that. And I think that it is in our interest to work together on this. And I don't think that a delay in coming up with language that we all agree to would undermine our case in trying to get that funding.
You know, we have had a number of groups reach out to all of us, interested groups looking and anxious to participate in the process. We've received some suggestions with regard to maps, people volunteering to help. We've all been approached individually. The fact that we don't have a website, we don't have a structure, we don't have staff, we don't have the ability to actually have the kind of outreach that we as a commission have been talking about for months, that's what's at stake here. You know, we keep talking about funding and about not offending anyone in the leadership or the governor's office or whatever the concerns happen to be. But the reality is we have people in the state that want to participate in this process, realize how important this process is, and we have not been able to give them the outlet that we should be. And that should be a concern for all of us. And so reaching a point where we put a letter together and send a letter out of concern for that, I think is appropriate. We had the letter, we circulated it, went out yesterday at just after 9 o'clock in the morning. We're now, a day later. If there's any suggestions that you may have with regard to how you would like to change this letter so we can get it out, give us some suggestions. If there are concerns as to how you would want to edit it, if there's a piece that you'd like to take out. But I'm concerned, and I hear the frustration in a lot of people, commissioners on this call. I'm concerned that if we don't get the letter out and we don't have this vote, then we're going to wait 2 weeks, and it's going to now be mid-February or later before we can reach agreement, and we may not reach agreement. So, if you have specific concerns with regard to changes you'd like to make to the letter, I haven't heard any yet. We've all had an opportunity to read it. It was drafted by members of this commission for everyone else to consider. So if you have concerns, let's discuss them. If the only concern is you don't want the letter to go out until you're able to, to come back with some concerns or some possible edits, then let's take the vote. If the votes aren't there for this thing to go out, then we can consider, our alternatives, but then we can also work together to try to put a letter and get that letter out later on. I prefer to see it go out now.
Commissioner Frazier.
Yes, thank you very much. And I apologize for the weakness in my voice, but I'm going to ask you to listen closely. Please send the letter. This organization, this group has been danced around a lot, and now it's time for the dance to stop. Please send the letter. Nothing is lost or gained by doing it, except whatever sense of ability that we have as a group to work together. And I'm going to ask, with the significance of something you'll appreciate by the end of the day, I'm just going to ask you to please send this letter and get it done now, and hurry up, because there are people waiting for us to act. There are people who've been waiting for us to step into the independent role. There are people who've been waiting for us to help keep a promise that was made to an electorate. Send the letter. And thank you. And I'll take my hand down now.
Commissioner Nesbitt, you wanted to speak.
Yes, powerful argument by Commissioner Frazier. I think we should all pay attention to that. I'll take a more practical view or a more practical bent at here. The 30 days are through what day? What day will they be out? Anybody can tell me offhand?
Well, it'd be 30 days from the 19th, right, Charlie?
19th?
The 19th is when the,
and today is the 28th. And what are our notice provisions if we're going to have another meeting? Doug?
72 hours, right?
Yeah,
72 hours, right?
All right. There are two reasons to send a letter. One is to get this $1 million allocation out to us in some form that we can actually use it. And the other is to get an appropriate number in next year's budget or in the 21-22 budget. So I can tell you from being very inside at one point in life that the questions around the 30-day amendment are being dealt with right now. And there is a finite number that's being dealt with there because, you know, the governor has a choice of increasing his number or adjusting or subtracting from someplace. And there are all kinds of interests that fight over this money. And it's now, it's not tomorrow or the next day or whatever. They're doing it now. In fact, this may be already too late as part of this process. So I think that we cannot delay. We, you know, 72 hours from later today puts us into the weekend, and that's not going to work. So it'd be next week, and all of a sudden we're right on top of the release of the 30 days already. So I think we need to send this letter. I think, in fact, if there need to be edits, we could either need to sit here and work them out, or we need to adjourn for a period of time and come back in at some point today, or just let's vote and see if we have the votes and get the letter sent.
I would be happy to
Sorry,
work
go
on
ahead.
editing
Yes.
the letter together at this
Right.
moment. I already
Yeah.
have one suggestion that I would like to make, but I guess we would do that in executive session.
And I had two suggestions.
Yeah, in the interest of not cobbling together, you know, everything, you know, in like, you know, in process that will probably take a while, can we ask that at least the commissioners on our side put together edits in the next 24 hours and get them to you?
I don't know how we do that in, you know, without, if we end this meeting, then we really can't take action as a commission until we give notice. And again, we're into next week. So
I
letter
agree with
does not-
Charlie.
Yeah.
I would like to do this now.
Okay.
Right, I agree. I was just,
All right, Doug, can we ask you to be the master of the document, or if you want to create a Google Doc and then we can look at it together?
Does everyone have a copy that I sent around yesterday?
It's a
Yes.
PDF, right, that you sent?
It was not a PDF. It was a Word
Okay,
document.
it was a Word. Okay,
It's a
do you
Word
want to
document.
create a Google Doc? Does everyone have the ability to use Google Docs, or should we? No? Okay. So
well, we have
Doug,
the letter. We could
Yeah.
comment on it.
Yeah, but the thing is, for purposes of having a single draft that everyone can look at real time. But yeah, it sounds like that's not possible. So, okay, let's,
I'll be the master of the
Doug, can we
document.
ask you, be the
Thank
master
you.
of the document? All right, so I think the first question are who's addressed to that Commissioner Flateau brought up.
Have we,
I agree that it currently CCs the legislative leaders, but it doesn't include the Attorney General.
Yes.
Is that something we wanted to add? Do we want to change it to be to the legislative leaders and the governor?
Again, I don't know what
Yeah.
the legislative leaders have to do with the 30-day amendments.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
you just mentioned that they're in a fight right now to update the budget. The legislative leaders are players here. What are you talking about?
they're CC, but the governor
Senate
is,
and the governor who are going to negotiate the budget,
it's the governor's budget.
not the legislative leaders.
It's the governor's budget that submits the budget and the 30-day amendments, not the
The
legislature.
governor is not king. The legislative leaders have input.
Commissioners, excuse me a second, hold on. It's form over substance. Whether they're CC'd or whether they're directly addressed, it's form over substance.
Correct.
If that's what reaches consensus, then let's agree that we can address it to everyone rather than having them CC'd.
Correct.
It's not part of the form of the letter.
Okay.
And let's just, I mean, honestly, please,
Yeah.
let's
Thank you,
Doug,
Mr.
okay.
Martins. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Doug, so we are agreed that we're going to include the legislative leaders. Sorry, are you ready?
Yes, but you said Attorney General. Is the Attorney General going to be an addressee on this?
Well, it would make sense for them to be CC'd, right? Because they have nothing to do with the budgeting process.
Yeah, so
But I don't know,
CC,
Commissioner.
Okay, so everyone gets addressed.
Hold it.
Attorney General
There were
CC.
sensitive issues raised in that letter about the legality of how the IRC is being handled at this point in violation of the state constitution. That's quoted in this letter. Is it not?
It is
Well-
quoted in this letter, but there's an open question of whether it is appropriate for us to ask the Attorney General for an opinion or whether we frankly strategically want that. Because ultimately the only opinion on this that may matter is someone in a black robe. So I think at this point, given that we haven't been given the resources to actually consult attorneys on this matter, I would prefer to do it as a CC for now.
I agree with Commissioner Walford. I mean, I think it's a different question, John. I mean, I think we need to discuss this more. Yeah.
You know what?
I think
It's more appropriate. You're right. George is right. Keith's right. Again, this isn't where we should be arguing. Let's just move forward, please.
Okay. So are we in agreement to CC the Attorney General?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Doug?
Question,
Yeah.
Commissioner Martins, do you also want to CC the U.S. Attorney?
Sure.
Or
There's no harm in adding them, only for the purpose of keeping them apprised of what's happening here in New York.
So which district? All districts, all federal districts in the state of New York, or just the capital? Just
I would
northern
send
district?
I would send it
Yeah.
to the U.S. Attorney General themselves, not the U.S.
Okay.
Attorney, but the U.S. Attorney
Okay.
General.
Yeah. All right. That's fine.
Okay, so I just need a point of clarity here. Governor, legislative leaders are the addressees. The CC is the New York State Attorney General and the United States Attorney General. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we leaving off the budget director?
No, he has to be on this. He has to be.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
has
you
to
should
be.
put him
He has to be an
into-
addressee. You know, this letter, the way I'm reading it, this is really about the $1 million old appropriation. Yes, we mentioned our request of the 3.2, but
Okay, I just
he has
wanted
to be on there. He has to be on
point
this.
out we should make sure the budget director is on there too as a CC.
As a CC, okay.
Well, yeah, he's not, right, colleagues? He's not the same level as those legislative leaders. He actually reports to the governor, right?
Yes. Even though sometimes he thinks he is.
So anything else on these initial threshold questions? All right, no. Okay, so let's just go through paragraph by paragraph. Okay, well, I think one question is I agree with the overall structure of the letter as it stands. Does anyone disagree?
No.
So then, okay, let's just go through paragraph by paragraph. Okay. The first paragraph is duly appointed members of the state commission. No objections, right?
Okay.
Okay. The second paragraph, nearly 1 year ago, the majority and minority leaders made their appointments. No objections,
No.
right? Okay.
None.
As of the date of this correspondence, no such funding has been released. No objections,
No.
right? Okay. Fourth paragraph. I appreciate the emphasis added. I presume, Jack, that was you who did that. The bolding emphasis added, because that's the litigator person. Whoever's the litigator, add that. No objections, right?
No.
Okay. The next objection: by failing to disperse the $1 million appropriated by the state legislature.
Yes, this.
I
this
I
is the
would
one
rephrase
where-
this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the thing is
Okay,
that
Commissioner
like,
Cuevas Molina.
I'm not a constitutional scholar, right? I'm a political scientist, but not a constitutional scholar. And I think that I don't know if we are in a position to make the claim that the administration is an express violation of the state constitution. Like
That's why I wanted the state attorney general in the loop.
Right.
Yeah,
And I agree with
exactly.
that. And I would propose, and I defer to Commissioner Cuevas Molina on this, that we ask your administration to live up to the standard that you set, and then delete the last sentence.
Yeah.
Commissioners, are you okay?
Yeah. Would that be all right with you, commissioners? So it would read, by failing to disperse the $1 million appropriated by the state legislature,
Let
go
me-
to the
let me-
comma. Yeah.
Let me ask a question for folks' consideration. Are they in compliance with the state constitution if they give us no money? We don't have to be, Lawrence Tribe or, Justice this and that.
Avoiding the Kagan,
It's that controversial.
I think that the argument is, I don't think that they think they're in violation of the state constitution. I think they're saying we are in good faith trying right now to meet the obligations of the state constitution, which is why I think we should say, we ask that you live up to the principles that you've laid out. Right? I mean, Doug and Karen were on the call like less than 24 hours ago, right? I mean, I think that we're not saying you're violating it. We're asking you to adhere to it.
And I feel like the
I'm
letter
saying you're
already
violating.
brings the heat. It's bringing a lot of
Colleagues,
heat.
I have to step away for about 2 minutes. I'll be
Okay,
right back.
Commissioner
Okay.
Plateau. Yeah.
And I think that this one statement is, I want to sign on to this letter. I can't sign on to the letter if that sentence is in there. I think that fixing it a little would be helpful.
Could we
use the
soften
word-
it by saying that they appear to be an express violation on the theory that we're not giving a collective legal opinion, but clearly not funding us?
No, I mean, Keith, you can't do you do that to your clients, right? Like, it's just, I mean, I think they're trying. That's what they would say, right? Like, they are trying.
I think we have a substantive disagreement about whether they're trying. They say that, but we think it's baloney.
Yeah, I
Let's be honest.
I don't think they're trying. If they were trying, we wouldn't be here and we would have been funded. If this were anything else that was a priority for them, we'd be funded. And I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt of thinking they're trying. They're in violation of the Constitution. It's clear in my mind. And
How about we
not gonna-
say, Commissioner, how about we say, if the money is not allocated, then the state would be in violation of the Constitution.
It hasn't been, but wait a minute.
Right.
It hasn't been allocated in a year. So they're in violation currently. If it's not allocated, it's in violation. Well, they are then. By virtue of that logic, they are currently in violation of the Constitution.
I'm not disagreeing with you, John, but I think that, if we put together, I think what Commissioner Cuevas Molina said is correct, right? Like, we need to, I agree with you, but I think that it's a subtle difference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the paragraph that I had the most problems with.
I'm always consummately entertained by the administrations and arguments of lawyers, and you guys are all wonderful. Glad to have you. I think, though, I think there is a great point here, and I think that in order for this, remembering that we're the first, and looking forward to other commissions,
Yes.
that the amendment contemplated us being funded. I would say, I believe the fact that they had initially appropriated $250,000 some time ago, that we were contemplated and being funded from the time of appointment, and that it's we have been having meetings, whether they be a full commission or partial meetings or whatever, for months and months and months without funding, without any consideration for our staff. Our executive directors were delayed by months from what my understanding of the contemplation of Constitution, or it clearly reads. And so I don't think there's a question that we're in violation, that somebody's in violation. And it's been violated by not providing funding as it was contemplated in the amendment. So if we want to somehow soften it, use the words "we believe" or "it appears," or
At present, your administration is in danger of being a violation of the state constitution, maybe?
How about this? The absence of funding is an express violation.
I would say the absence of funding would be an express violation.
Well, for the lawyers out there, the absence of funding.
All right, did I get lost? I think I got lost just now.
Yeah.
Would that be all right?
Yes, Commissioner Brady.
Out there, the absence of funding in order to function of the commission it's an absence of funding within the meaning of the state constitution. Tells them that they violated the Constitution if you don't knuckles and say it's an express constitutional violation. It leaves it out there for the for the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney, whatever charge you're making. You're making a charge that they're violating the Constitution. Tell them why, and just those lawyerly squirmy words within the meaning of the state constitution. If you don't want to say express violation and raise the flag, depends on what you're looking to do. If you're looking to raise the flag, call it a violation. If you're looking to tell them it's a violation, and to make this a letter that's more constructive than destructive, then use those lawyerly words within the meaning. But I'll let the other lawyers speak to that.
No, you can't escape being a lawyer, Ross. You're a lawyer just like the rest of us. Okay.
I go back to Commissioner Frazier's comments and my previous comments. Guys, this is about empowering the various groups in this state to participate in this process. If we're a little indignant about it and we're a little angry about it and we're a little frustrated by this process, it should come through in this letter. The idea that we're sitting here parsing words on something as simple as whether or not they're in violation of the Constitution by not having funded this commission. Come on. I mean, let's call it what it is. Let's have the courage of our convictions. Let's not worry about offending anyone. And let's put this in writing and send it to them.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, Jack. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think we need to be legally correct here, right? And that's my concern, is that, the state constitution doesn't provide a date upon which the money has to be allocated, right? I agree with what Commissioner Nesbitt said. My interpretation is it's upon formation of the commission, right? But, right, if that's not, there's no date in the state constitution. So I would say we should put together language expressing that, right?
Expressing that if they, for example, Commissioner Imara decided to give us the money in 2023, that they could argue or preserve an argument that that was compliant.
I'm
Why
not
would we wanna
disagreeing with
preserve
you.
that?
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, Commissioner Wofford. But I'm just saying, if they come back and say, well, we're literally, the money is about to go to CNRF, there's a contract drafted that they're keeping from us that we can't see, right? But they could
Which
say,
point
yeah,
does-
we're about to, come into
But at
compliance.
that point, they would have cured. They would have at least arguably cured the violation at that point. Let them cure. That's the whole point.
Right.
I can
Yeah.
make a good faith argument that they're in violation of the Constitution. I have absolutely no problem making that claim and actually substantiating it by virtue of everything that's happened to this point. And to call it, frankly, is to undermine what we've been trying to do these last 6+ months.
How about we say at present, your administration will be in violation of the state constitution, and in the absence of this allocation, right? And some would, or we could say some of us believe that that we are in violation.
Why don't we do this, just so we don't, why don't we send the letter, why don't we take the vote? There's a motion, there's a second. Let's see whether or not there's a vote. There's enough people who are in support of this thing. This point's very important to some of us. And if the majority does not want to send this letter, we'll send it individually. And those who don't want to send the letter can prepare their own letter and send that, rather than sitting here parsing words over what is. I got to tell you, it's now 11:05. We're getting into a certain level of minutia. Either we agree on the sentiment and the reason for this letter, but if we're going to start parsing words this way on something as simple as whether or not their funding of this commission is a violation of a constitutional provision, we're wasting our time.
And I agree with you, Jack, which is why I propose putting together a markup. But should we could just have a vote right now on this paragraph?
Jack,
Right?
actually,
Yeah.
could indulge us maybe for 5 more minutes?
Okay.
I would just like to know, other than this paragraph, are there any other items, or is it we're going to tick through the rest like we did through the beginning, that the rest of it is basically all consensual? Because I'd love to know if this is the only issue or if there are others, because that would, I think, give more clarity to any vote that we might take.
So the recognizing, okay, so scroll on to the next page. Okay, Commissioner Flateau, Commissioner Cuevas Molina, what are your objections? There are some things
That's the only paragraph I have a problem with.
Okay. John,
Where are we, if you don't mind?
so we're stuck on the paragraph about whether there's a violation or not, but are there any other things that you wanted changed in the letter?
Well, page 3, bottom. Well, we are addressing now the governor and legislative leaders, right? Yes?
Right, yes.
So I don't have a, see, originally it was only holding the governor accountable. But
Well, the next action is to be taken by the governor, Commissioner. I think that's why it's appropriately directed, but in the acknowledgement that there are many players here, your point earlier made, I think that's appropriate.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
I would
only
have
other
one
thing. Sorry, go ahead, Charlie. Yeah.
Sorry, just one suggestion that might, if there remains this difficulty, but I might suggest at present, your administration has not lived up to the intent of the state constitution and state legislative law.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
The thought occurred to me to possibly, you may want to consider one more CC. Chancellor James Malatra, State University of New York. To the earlier questions, yes, there is a board of directors at SUNY RF, but I believe it comes under the state university and the chief officer of the state University of New York. I see Elaine on as well. Why not put him on the record just as a CC, adding him as a CC? Chancellor James Malatras, State University of New York. How do you all feel about that?
I don't
I would
believe,
agree with
I don't believe that Jim has authority over this commission. The idea that they created a construct that puts us in a position of having to address that, but I don't believe that he, nor do I think it's appropriate, frankly, for this commission to acknowledge that the chancellor of the Sunni system somehow has some oversight over this commission. It runs counter to the purpose of the commission as an independent entity. You know, Dr. Malatras as an appointee of the governor as well. So I get it, I understand, but he's only there because of the construct that they're trying to impose on us. I'm not so sure that the optic is appropriate to have him as part of this discussion, because he wouldn't be, but for the fact that they placed him in that position and us in that position.
Well, I think though that our Doug and Karen are having a problem getting cooperation and information from the staff over at Sunni RF. So whoever their boss is, to me, should be on notice. And we may want to, I think I'm correct in saying that would be Malatras. That's the only reason I'm putting it there. That if they continue to get roadblocked by whoever they're talking to over at RF, no, you can't see the contract, we're going to do this, you got to follow that. You know, we need to go higher up that chain as well.
So maybe it's
That's just a suggestion. I'm not do or die on that.
Though I think that this letter doesn't really have much to do with this negotiation or process that does.
You're right. It's a bigger
Sunni,
picture.
right?
Okay. I'll withdraw.
Okay, no, you know.
Okay.
Whatever. It's not a deal breaker here for me.
So the other revision that I had was the paragraph that starts recognizing that the budget director failed to even acknowledge our letter. I would delete down that paragraph. Are you following me, Keith? Unfortunately, there was no response from you or the majority party leaders in either chamber of the state legislature. That's actually not true. We've been in touch with the majority in conferences. So I would just delete that sentence and then maybe say, and then keep Senator Ort's response, statement as part of it. We didn't receive a written response, but we have been in touch. So I would just delete that sentence.
But the commission hasn't been in touch.
Right.
You've been in touch, but certainly they haven't been in touch with the commission. They've been in touch with you. And so the letter is correct. We didn't hear from them, and they certainly didn't acknowledge anything that we sent them. So
Not in
why?
official capacity.
Well, no, but the response is what I'm articulating to you here is that they understand our concerns and are, as Doug will say, actively trying to work with us to resolve this situation.
If you're going to go that route, and I'm just going to weigh in here, we have talked to Division of Budget as well, but no official correspondence is what I believe that this letter is referencing. So we have, both Karen and I have talked to Division of Budget.
But we haven't heard from the governor's office, right? So this is directed to the governor.
Language where it says not failed to acknowledge, why not say no official response? Because I think that's what we're saying. We're saying informally, we have been back channeling with all these offices, but the commission sent an official communication and there's been no official response.
Correct. So we have no record of
there's no record.
Correct.
Can we
So
just say,
I would say, so there was no response to the commission from you or the majority party leaders.
could you add the word official response?
Yeah, no official response.
You okay with that, Keith?
I don't know that it's a response to the commission if they speak to some subset of the commissioners.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to talk to them, Keith, like we could have arranged it, right? I mean,
And they have.
right? Yeah, like if I'm taking Minority Leader Ort's response as well as response to us, right?
He's the only one that
Right.
responded on the record with a letter.
Right.
Communication. The other three have not officially responded to us yet.
Right. So yeah.
Staff level, there has been communication.
Right. Like the actual response is through us, right? We're articulating it to you now. And we articulated it to you previously. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what everyone's coming from, but I think official response would be a more accurate description.
Okay. Apparently.
Yeah, well, I hate to say it, but having just a conversation with you, David, and then relaying it to us doesn't give us any way to hold people accountable. They need to be on the record. They need to give us an official response because
I agree. So we should say no official response.
Yeah, because if not, it's like they can keep on jerking us around.
Agreed.
So
official response.
Commissioner Martins, my view is I wouldn't stand on ceremony on this language because the record makes clear that they haven't talked to us as a commission. The record of this meeting makes clear that they're saying whatever they say in a way that doesn't subject them to any record or accountability. And with that, I wouldn't rest on ceremony of the words, but what do the fellow commissioners say?
Guys, whether it's
I think that if we, again, it's parsing. If we say no official response, that's true. It puts them all in the loop of responsibility. I think that, in fact, would eliminate our total difficulty with the letter, and we might be able to get a vote now.
All right, so no objections to changing it to official response.
Yeah.
No official response.
Okay. No absence of official response. Okay. All right, moving on. Did anyone have any other changes that they wanted to make? That was it on my end.
So shall we move the question?
Well, I
Wait, sorry, Doug, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep up here. Page 1, no changes, correct? Or are we changing that? David,
Well, no, because we haven't resolved that one paragraph, right? So let's just address the rest of the letter first and then go back to that one paragraph.
Just trying to keep up here.
Yeah, it's hard. Okay. Thank you for doing this. But no other changes that folks want to talk about for the rest of the letter, right?
No.
Okay, so let's go back to our favorite paragraph. By failing to disperse. Commissioner Nesbitt, what was your proposal again? I remember thinking it was a good one, but I've promptly forgotten what it was. So
I'm so memorable. My proposal was, at present, your administration has not lived up to the provisions of the state constitution and state legislative law.
I would be fine with that.
Me too.
Yes.
Jack, Keith, what do you think? George? Ross? Yeah.
No, that is acceptable and true.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Keith?
But we're keeping the balance of that sentence referencing Dr. McDonald, right?
Sure, yes.
Because look, I will share with you that having been in the legislature when we went through this process, there were a lot of people doing taking principled stances back then around this issue. A lot of people taking principled stances who are now in leadership. The governor is still there. The leadership in the legislature, they were all on board. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were declaring this to be the best format for independent redistricting in the entire country. And here we are. So I think it's appropriate to remind them of their position back and what our consensus was around what our expectations was, because the expectation certainly was that the commission would be nearly in February of 2021 and still asking for funding.
So leave it intact.
I'm fine with, yeah. So Doug, can you read? Go ahead, Keith.
Let me just go back to the basic proposition that I stated earlier. Does anybody on this call, at least as far as the commissioners are concerned, disagree that failure to fund is a violation? Does anybody disagree with that? No disagreement. Okay. With that, I'm fine with the change language in the letter, as long as that's clear from the record.
All right. So, Doug, can you read us that paragraph as you have it in the document?
By failing to disperse 1 million appropriated by the state legislature in the 2020-2021 New York State budget, your administration has failed to live up to the standard you set when you said, wait, is this the one? Yeah. This historic constitutional amendment would finally reform the state's broken redistricting process. At present, your administration has not lived up to the provisions of the state constitution and the state legislative law, fundamentally negating what Dr. Michael McDonald, who served as a professor at George Mason University and a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, called your principled stand during the last redistricting process. Is that the way you wanted that read?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Going down to this other paragraph that needed to be changed, has that been agreed upon? Where is the adjustment needed to be made? I think it was.
So it's so starting at, unfortunately, there has been no official response from you or the majority party leaders.
There's been no official, just adding.
Right.
Just adding the one word, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. And this was a good letter, by the way, Jack. I think you probably you weren't the drafter. Who was the drafter? Who was the main drafter?
It was a group effort.
Okay.
It's a great letter.
Yeah, it's a good letter. Yeah. Does anyone have any other changes or adjustments?
I just need clarity. In this, the CCs were the budget director Robert Mojica. Rosanna Rosado was the Department of State where that appropriation exists. Is that not going to be a part of the CC now, or is it going to remain the Department of State?
I would retain that. I think was the consensus.
Yeah,
it is. Okay. And then I'm going to be adding to the CCs the New York State Attorney General, the United States Attorney General, and adding and taking the legislative leaders and adding them to addressees along with the governor.
I would just observe, by keeping the Department of State there, we're retaining only one half of our dance partners. The other dance partner is Sunni RF or Sunni. So if you're gonna leave Rosado Department of State there, I would suggest we add the Chancellor of Sunni there.
The only thing that I can say to that, and this is just based on information I've been given, Sunni Research Foundation is just being contracted by the Department of State. So the contract's between Department of State and Sunni Research Foundation, and that contract we have not seen. So other commissioners, you can weigh in, but I did not on purpose do that because there has not been a contract between the Department of State of Sunni Research Foundation, to our knowledge, prior to this letter.
So in your opinion, we should leave Sunni off at this point.
I would.
Okay.
Because the money comes from Department of State to them, and that's where the contract would go, but we have not seen a contract.
So, okay, one other item to address. So the letter was drafted as you being the governor's office, right? But now we've added the state legislature to the attendees, to the addressees. Should we just delete those references, right? So that you is a collective you. So for example, in the unfortunately, there was no response from you. We can delete or the majority party leaders in either chamber of the state legislature, right? Because they are encompassed by you, right? So would there be any objection to deleting or the majority party leaders in either chamber of the state legislature? And there's other references to that too, in other parts of the.
There was a response from Leader Ort. That's the only problem.
Oh, okay. From you, and then maybe we should say, well, I think that's fine to just say that said, right? Because that's carving him out, right? So I don't know if we need to change that, right? So we're carving him out by including his statement in there.
We would be, yes.
Yeah.
All right, I was going to say, he is mentioned in the letter.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay.
Yeah, and then there's so no objection to changing it to the collective you. Doug, you look confused. Okay, sorry.
No, I just need a point of clarity. Is that change being made? Because I have it in front of me, so I'm just.
Okay, so no objection to that. Okay, all right. And then there's other references to the state legislature. So in the paragraph below the Naleo letter, this correspondence was sent to the state budget director with copy sent to you and the state legislative leaders. You can just delete and the state legislative leaders.
Where are we?
So do you see the Naleo, the big quote?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see below that, finally, the commission's co-executive directors as appointed? So the following sentence, this correspondence was sent to the state budget director with copies sent to you and the state legislative leaders. You can just delete and the state legislative leaders.
Got it.
Right. And then there's one other reference, I think, to the state legislature. Okay, so then towards the bottom of that paragraph, prospectively, we encourage you and your colleagues in the state legislature to fulfill your constitutional obligation. You can just say, we encourage you to fulfill your constitutional obligation.
Hold on, where was that? Was that?
So that same paragraph.
The leadership or the legislature as a whole?
Sorry, Keith, I lost you. What did you say?
Was that addressed to the legislative leadership or the legislature as a whole?
It's the legislative leadership, right? Yeah, that's my understanding, right? I mean, we could change it to, we encourage you and the full state legislature, if you want. But I just think that we should be.
Yeah,
correct.
that's better.
Yeah.
You and the legislature?
Yeah.
I'm fine. Either
Sure. Okay. I thought that there was one more reference.
What I'll do is I'll just adjust it for all of the, because
Yeah.
of all addressees now, I could just go in and adjust it, and I can certainly send it back around to the group.
Yeah,
So that everyone.
but I just worry that if I don't want us to have to get on the call later this afternoon if there's some issue, right? So we may as well just
let it
do
go
this now. Yeah.
And the signatures are we 10 commissioners, right? Names at the bottom, right below respectfully yours, right?
Well, I would say the commissioners that are on this call.
Who's not on this call?
Or what, Gene's not on. I mean, we could just sign it, the state, the Independent Redistricting Commission. Right, because we'll have, because then that would be correct, because we have the votes here, right?
Okay.
I agree with
I don't want to put Gene on the letter,
So commissioners of the Independent Redistricting Commission, correct? That's
Well, not the committee, it's just the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission.
okay.
Because not the commissioners, right? Because that's technically incorrect, right?
Yeah, but so we're not putting names.
No.
Right, just sign it, the full commission. Yeah.
Okay.
You can put mine in. Honestly.
Yeah, I'm a little puzzled. Why
I don't know.
are 9 of us here?
Yeah,
I
put us,
mean, if we want to leave Gene off because he hasn't been a part, I would leave him off. But if the other 9 of us are ready to drop our name right now,
Yeah, I mean, that's fine too.
What
Yeah.
I would suggest is reach out to Gene, tell them we are sending the letter. If he wants his name, great. If he doesn't want his name there, keep it off.
the letter
Okay,
go.
that works
I'm
out. Yeah.
going to send everyone, all commissioners, the letter along with Karen after these adjustments have all been made. And then if there's a response, then we could take a name off. Does that work? If Gene.
No, I think as a matter of procedure, Doug, we have to vote as a commission to approve it as a commission. And
First.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
All right, just let me know what I got to do on my.
One other on the CC. We have Doug and Karen down there as CCs.
Commissioner Flateau, we're appointed. We're not employees of the commission right now. So
Your answer would be no.
my answer is no.
Okay.
I don't know how you're gonna send it to me. In fact, and that needs to be clarified. This is going to be sent via email, or will there be some sort of postage and reimbursement? I don't know how. We have been corresponding via email.
Email's considered official communication, right?
Yes, I've been keeping a log of my emails and correspondence from the Redistricting Commission, and responses have come to both Karen and my personal emails.
Okay.
So with all of that, and with apologies to Commissioner Martins, to whom I said this would be a 5-minute process and it's ended up being 25, I would now like to make a motion to approve the letter as revised.
second,
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going through one more time.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. So Doug, if you could send us the revised draft and so we can take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm just going to update the addressees. I will change the date. The date will be today that we are sending it, correct?
Yes, yeah. And there's still the question of our next meeting, commissioners. So I know that Karen and Doug had been in contact about February 25th, but unfortunately that does not work for our tech friends. I would propose, because the legislature's in session, I would propose Friday the 26th
Fine with me.
at 10 a.m.
Yes.
I actually have a conflict that day. What were the days available with the tech people?
So the legislature's in session, so Monday through Thursday doesn't work for them that week. And Eric, I don't know if are there any times that you have carved out, or probably not, right? Because just the legislature is just going to be in session that entire time. So you're Keith, you're not available that whole day, the 26th?
No.
Okay.
Either the prior week or the following week is fine late in the week, but I have a conflict at the end of that week.
Okay. So our tech folks are looking right now. And by the way, I do want to recognize the legislative technology team for bearing with us through this entire process. Hopefully we will one day get funding and relieve you of these duties. So, but thank you, we really appreciate it. I mean, we could propose the 19th, Friday the 19th. I don't know if that works for them though. Okay, we could do the morning of the 22nd. Does that work?
Yeah, that would also let us know whether or not that we're in the 30-day amendments.
Oh, that would be excellent.
22nd morning is fine for me.
Wait, that doesn't work for you, John?
No.
Not for you, John?
No.
Okay. So we were talking about the 19th. Eric, does that work for you guys, the 19th? Okay, 19th is good for them. So 10 a.m. on the 19th. Does that work for everyone?
Be by me.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay by me.
Okay. Elaine, Evelise,
I'm good.
Charlie. Okay. All right. So 10 a.m. on the 19th. Great. All right. Is there any other business that folks would like to bring before the commission? All right. Well, thank you all so much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
So moved. Second by Commissioner Flateau. We have by Commissioner Wofford. All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you all so much. And thank you to the public and to the tech team. We will see you on February 19th.